I feel like maybe in in times right now where there's a lot of anxiety, um, because of the current global situation. People are struggling financially. They're losing their businesses. They're having to go under, filing, bankruptcy. I'm seeing a couple local restaurants just down the street that have been here for 15 or 20 years. They can't survive right now. So it's troubling times right now for a lot of people. And I think right now I wanted to just kind of talk to you about how I was able to kind of change my mindset as a choice as to how I want to carry out and be the model that I'm dreaming to be a successful contributor to society in
Right.
this world, and and not suffering from self-sabotage and practices that a lot of human beings can relate to. And so, anyways, that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. And it might get a little deep, so just a little forewarning for you.
Let's
But
do it. Let's go deep. I think yesterday I wrote it down. You said rising to the warrior inside of you. I was like, that sounds cool.
so the warrior, it's a very powerful word. There's
Yeah.
it's not just hero; it's warrior. It's
Battle
uh,
tested.
battle tested, fearless. I mean, what are some other adjectives that you think of whenever you think of a warrior?
Battle tested, fearless, action taker, I guess, courageous.
Exactly. Exactly. And so there's an innate ability, I think, that human beings strive for. When people say they have their good days versus their bad days, what does that really mean? And on your good days, how do you feel? Are you feeling energetic? Like you're accomplishing your objectives for that week or that month or that quarter or that year? I mean, making goals and kind of planning your vision to get to where you want to be. A goal without a plan is a wish. So you got to attach a plan to it in order
Right.
to accomplish that, right? Or
Right.
just like spinning in circles and you just drift around in the same place and you don't really progress in life, right? And so that's what I'm looking to do. I'm a small business owner and I'm looking to progress to the next level. I'm not saying I want to conquer the world or anything like that, but hey, I want to have a one hell of a legacy when I leave this world one day, right?
Right.
So when I was growing up, and and up until about 6 months ago, um, can you relate? Do you have like some kind of thought process, like a dialogue almost that you hear in your mind about how the world is and what you should do in this situation versus that situation?
Yeah, I guess I've heard it said that we have like a software that we're programmed with when we're younger. So I don't think I necessarily have a dialogue, but I have those scripts in my mind of what I think it is or is not possible for me based
Mhm.
on my past, what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so cool. I think you can relate to this then.
Yeah.
And when I say dialogue, I don't mean
You're not like talking to yourself, right?
I'm not talking about like voices. I'm just talking about me and my thought process and how I'm perceiving the world and how and I have it with myself when I'm alone and I'm mowing the yard,
Right.
when I'm shaving in the morning before I go to work, when I'm driving and I'm sitting in traffic and I'm not listening to music and I'm just sitting there just thinking about my thoughts and my day and everything that's going on, from my wife to my family to my job to all this stuff, right? And
Right.
so there are archetypes. You can look this up. So archetypes are like models that you strive to be. Okay. And one archetype is a let's focus on two of them. One of them is called a warrior, and there's another one that's called a saboteur. Okay. And so just to be clear, the saboteur is one who practices sabotage. Sabotage is restricting, it's eliminating, it's isolating. What are some other feelings that you think of like opposite of a warrior? What do you think of whenever you, what are some characteristics that come to your mind?
I think of quitting, backing down, being fearful,
Okay.
afraid to try new things, someone who's more sitting in the back seat, follower instead of a leader.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So you're following along with exactly what I'm doing. So what I want you to do is I want you to make a quick little T chart.
Okay.
And on one side, at the top, I want you to write saboteur. And then on the other side, on the top, I want you to write warrior. All right. And I want you to name some of these characteristics that we just talked about. So for the saboteur, you mentioned
Like quitter, fearful.
quitter, fearful. For me, my saboteur is like isolator, which means when I say isolator, I mean like I'm smarter than everybody else. Nobody else knows.
Does it like me.
Nobody else does it as well as I do, and they're not as good. So just don't worry about them. Let's focus
Stick
on
to
them.
yourself. Yeah.
Let's be alone in this together. That's like another.
That's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a loner
Whereas-
almost.
Yes, exactly. And then on the other side, let's write your warrior.
Are we going to do the opposites of what I wrote down?
Yeah. So for your warrior, what are your traits? What are your characteristics that you see in your own warrior?
So in my own warrior, I would say fearless, or at least courageous enough to face the fear. So I'll write those both down.
Okay.
I mean, we all have fears, but being able to face them is something else. So
Yeah.
fearless
Courage.
to an extent, courageous.
Yeah. It's almost like, think of like characteristics of like, almost like a superhero, right?
Yeah.
Like, who is Superman? What are his characteristics? Nobody can stop him, right? He can do anything that he really wants to, right? He's Superman.
Yeah. Limitless almost, right? Yeah.
Limitless, exactly. So when I was learning these two concepts, I was like, okay, I get it. Now, how does it apply to my life specifically? And it's like, well, for me, I had to not only just understand the difference between a saboteur and a warrior, but I had to understand how it affects me in my personal life in order to really click, right?
Right.
And what I realized and what my life coach has taught me, she's awesome. She's awesome, man. And her strategies in teaching this, corporate executives all over the world, Fortune 100 companies, small business owners, and the results have just been astounding. And so I'm here to just, again, give my personal take on a concrete example on how it's changed my life. And I'm hoping that it can maybe rub off on you a little bit and take it for what you will. I know that you're in entrepreneurial motivation, and this is what has really kind of changed my perception of being my warrior in this world and not suffering from self-sabotage. So
Yeah.
I had to give my saboteur a name. I had to name him. And I thought of the most disgusting, slimy scumbag, diabolical name that I could think of. And the name has to match the picture of this made up person in order to give me just something to call him, something to be descriptive about it so that I can identify him easily, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm an open book. My saboteur's name is Sylvester. Okay.
Sounds like a slime bag. Yeah.
I hate that name for some reason. No offense to anybody named Sylvester out there. I'm
I think
sure
the
you're
only one I could think of is
but-
Sylvester Stallone, right?
Yeah. or whatever. But that's just
That's who you named him. Okay.
whatever. You can name your saboteur Scott if your name is Sylvester. Okay, whatever. And Sylvester is a coiled up snake, and he uses his camouflage to disguise himself as the all righteousness. He's very opportunistic whenever I'm having vulnerable moments in my life, right? And I think anybody can relate to this. When there's an event that happens that is detrimental to you or your company or something like that. Take this coronavirus, for example, right? People are losing their jobs and stuff, right? It can do a number of things to people's psyche. For example, one thing could be, all right, I just lost this business. I'm going to figure out what else I'm good at, and I'm going to get going on that, and I'm going to turn this whole thing around, and I'm going to get right back to where I was. Screw this coronavirus. It's not going to beat me, right?
Right.
What does that sound like to you?
That sounds like a warrior mentality to
Sounds like
me.
warrior mentality. Other people can take it a different way. God, I don't know how I'm ever going to get out of this. I just lost my business. My wife's about to leave me. I'm gonna go start drinking to relieve the stress that I'm under, and I don't know how else I'm gonna see fit in this world, or any other kind of depressing.
Woe is me. Yeah.
You know, how can it affect you, right? How do you let it affect you? And if we can all agree that anybody is 100% in control of the choices they make in life. For example, if somebody had a gun to my head and asked me a question, regardless if they had a gun to my head or not, it's still my choice to decide how I'm going to respond. Yes or no, or whatever it is. I'm just using a hypothetical here. What the point that I'm getting at is everybody has their own conscious choice on how they react, or on how they sorry, I lost you for a sec. On how they react to a certain situation, on how they speak a certain way, and all that stuff, right? Everybody has a certain choice. Can you agree with that?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Like, it doesn't matter if somebody has a gun to your head, you still have the choice to answer or do whatever it is that you want to, right?
Right.
If we can look at it from that basis, to the people who take it as a depressing way and they don't see a way out of it, their saboteur is in control of their life at that moment and how they perceive the world. Okay, they're choosing to listen to those thoughts. They're choosing to listen to that dialogue. And that just drives them into a meaning of just an episode of self-sabotage, that they start feeling like they're a failure. Like I can't afford a month this rent, let alone my taxes at the end of the year, so I'm not going to pay those. And you know how it just keeps kind of turmoiling and kind of spinning if you keep listening to it, right?
Right.
Or you can listen to your warrior. Okay, now my warrior's name is Eastwood, and he's a freaking badass, man. Eastwood is awesome. He's fearless. He says there's nothing that can stop us. The clear vision forward is obviously A, and if we don't, plan B is in effect, and that's going to be just fine as well. But we can get back on our feet. There's nothing that can stop us. Once a little episode passes, it's going to be like it never even hit us, right? So you can start thinking those thought processes as well. So what I'm saying is, once I could put a name to it, like Sylvester or Eastwood, it really clicked in my head that who do I want to listen to? And how do I want to digest everything that's going on in the world? Tapping into people's psyches and subconsciouses, and having them realize that you do have a choice. You can make a difference if you start listening to your warrior, and it will remove those thoughts of anxiety. It will remove those thoughts of depression, the self-isolation. It'll give you a more sense of, hey, I want to reach out. Let's do this together. You know, there's more of like a sense of community that is involved with your warrior. I mean, who would you rather go to battle with back in a medieval day? Would you rather go to battle with your warrior, or would you rather go to battle with your saboteur?
Definitely your warrior.
Your warrior is going to dominate, right? Your saboteur is going to be fearful. I don't know if I'm good enough to even be in this battle. You know, like, it's a silly analogy, but you get the point. I think that there's a lot of people who can relate to understanding this concept and being able to apply it to their everyday life, and being able to recognize when these events happen, when the decision is made, and how to respond to it. I think to myself, well, do I want to be negative and just go crawl in a hole under a rock somewhere and just can't wait and pray until this life is over, or whatever it is that people do whenever they're in self-sabotage? Or do you want to rise above it and still say, hey, there are still bright lights ahead of me in this world, and whatever happened in the past is in the past. You can't let it affect you going forward. If my saboteur is in control of me professionally, he's going to be in control of me personally too. And you just start noticing and connecting dots that, hey, my saboteur is in control of me when I'm making the decision to go drink to relieve my stress because I have a struggling business, and that there are much bigger players out there in the real estate world, and I'll never be as good as them. Those guys are so far advanced. They got everything that you don't have, Scott. And these guys can just whip out a duffel bag full of cash, and they're going to steal every single offer that you make on any house. And you're always going to be the small player in this. That's what my saboteur tells me. He tries to tell me that, right? There's also my warrior who says, Scott, what happened in the past, it happened in the past. You can't change it. All you can do is know how to move forward. You don't always want to live life like this, all right? You do want to have a nice family with your wife, your beautiful wife, who's also your business partner. Y'all work great together, and there's nothing that can stop us. Other people had to start from their own spot in this world as well. You know, when we wake up, we have the same 24 hours in a day, the same set of days in a week, and the same amount of months in a year to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And if these other bozos can do it, there's no reason why two good heads in this marriage right here and in this business relationship can't conquer it as well. If we just work hard, work smartly, and connect with the right people, oh my God, sky is the limit, right?
Right.
So it's how you go about and what dialogue do you listen to in your head.
Yeah,
And
it's those scripts that we run. Kind of, I've heard that example before. We got to update the computer programs because we've had the programming from when we were young, and a lot of people, their family says we can't afford that. We'll never have that. That's for rich people. And those kinds of thoughts can affect us now when we see a Rolls Royce going by and we're like, oh, that's not for us. We can't afford that. You're automatically inhibiting yourself rather than listening to the warrior voice of, I can achieve that. It's just a matter of time and hard work. So you just got to update the computer programs.
Right. Exactly. So my saboteur, in addition to telling me what my business was like and what my thing was like, because I was always a perfectionist growing up, and I thought that was a huge asset to me because everything was going to be done right. It turned out to be more of a liability, and it's taken me a hell of a long time now to kind of realize that you can't let perfection get in the way of profitability or you can't let perfection get in the way of being good enough. And I'm not saying cut corners or anything like that,
Right.
but if something wasn't perfect, it would drive me crazy. And if I couldn't get it perfect, and the more and more I worked harder at it, it turned out I was just wasting time trying to get it perfect. But it was driving me crazy, and it would get inside my head saying that, hey Scott, you're not living up to the standards that you're setting up. You want to be perfect. You're not perfect. That means that you're not going to get to where you want to go, right?
Right.
And the stress, oh man, the stress of having to listen to this dialogue all the time, right? And just, if I change the dialogue, update the computer software, like you said, if I change the dialogue, man, it's had sweeping, profound impact. Changing the dialogue and listening to my warrior and seeing the way out of the struggles that you're going to, things just become more clear. You start making more connections that you didn't think you would make before. You start following up with people that you didn't used to follow up with in the past. You start feeling more of a sense of community and like, hey man, I've got a plan, I've got a vision. Do you want to get on this train with me or not? Because I'm shooting for the stars here. And if I don't reach the stars, maybe I'll land on the moon. And I want you to join me because I like you. And I think that we could benefit off of each other, progressing through this thing that we just call life. What do you really want to get out of this world? And how do you want to spend your time here? Do you want to spend it miserable and alone and negative? Or do you want to be looked up to? Do you want, people to remember your name whenever you leave this world? And I made a choice. I said, I identify when my saboteur is trying to take my power away. And I say, shut up. Eastwood is in charge. My warrior is in charge. And that's how I'm going to proceed with the rest of my life. So anyways, that's my little spiel.
That's cool. So is that an exercise that you went through with your life coach?
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
actually naming the saboteur and the warrior.
She was really good at it. She didn't come up with a concept of a saboteur or a warrior, but her method of teaching it to you in your life and being able to apply it to you specifically in your day-to-day situations that go on, profound impact on my life. I've completely turned around. I was the definition of my own worst enemy. And I didn't know what that meant until I understood this concept. My saboteur is always competing for my attention. He's always trying to drag me down. My warrior, however, you got to go to him. You got to find him. He doesn't compete for it. You got to make the choice that you want to be that model. You want to follow that model, right? Where do I go to find my warrior? Every single morning that I wake up, Monday through Sunday, I listen to an inspirational or a motivational speech or a video or something like that. It can be sports, it can be business related, it can be a documentary from Warren Buffett, it could be a documentary on some kind of successful triumph over tragedy, something like that. When I listen to these speeches, I'm listening to my warrior through these other mediums. So, and I take log of each one that I do, and I kind of rank them, which one do I like better than this one, stuff like that. So I'm keeping track of all these videos that are my warrior. So yeah, so where do I find my warrior, right? So like I said, I got to be disciplined in order to stay to my choice that I've made, because anybody can tell you to do something. You still have to choose to do it yourself. And if you choose, you got to stay dedicated and disciplined to it. So I'm disciplined about it. Every single day I wake up, it's like brushing my teeth. As I'm brushing my teeth, I'm listening to an inspirational, motivational speech or something like that. I'll go back and I'll watch Remember the Titans. Simpsons, or I'll go back and I'll watch Rudy or something like that. Somebody who never quits, somebody who never stops listening to their warrior. And that empowers me to rise to my warrior, because that's the kind of person I want to be in life, and the kind of leader as a real estate developer. That's the leadership that I want to. I don't want my leader to be a saboteur. I want my leader to be a warrior. Like, hey, it doesn't matter what happens. We're gonna fight, and we're gonna conquer all the goals that we want to conquer.
Yeah.
We're gonna hit those marks that we're gonna hit. And this is exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to put a system together. We're going to plan it out, and we're going to accomplish that goal. And the energy is contagious. That kind of energy is contagious. And I know that. I'm a firsthand experience of that. I wake up every single day, and when my warrior is in charge, man, I can't wait to talk to people about it and get them motivated with me to go tackle what we need to do, whether it's putting another house under contract, whether it's connecting with a real estate agent that I've never talked to before, just to reach out and introduce myself. But if you don't do that, you're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I like to connect with people who are more advanced than I am, so that I can pick their brains. Hey, how did you get this far? Did you ever have any feelings of self-doubt? And how did you overcome that? Making the connections that I used to not make because I thought that I was not good enough, or that, oh, this person's further along than I am. They're not going to listen to somebody who's just trying to start out and get into this, right? They've been doing this for years. I'm just a pissant. That's when my saboteur was in control.
Right.
And he was restrictive in my ability to progress my business because he was in control. But not anymore. When my warrior's in control, I'm fearless in making those connections, because I know that people are going to jump on board with my plans and my vision and get them on my side. There's a huge sense of coming together, and let's tackle this as a team. Teamwork really is the heart and soul of being able to perform successfully when you're in the industry that I'm in anyways. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm not necessarily going into a whole lot more than that. If you want to look up other archetypes or something like that, Google it. If you want to look more into saboteur and warrior, Google it. But I think that it's important for you to really write down your saboteur and his characteristics, your warrior and his characteristics, and name it. Name each one and be descriptive about it. My saboteur is a snake. He blends in, he camouflages. Sometimes you don't know he's in control, when really, hey, your saboteur's diabolical. So helping you identify him and where he likes to take control of your mind and your thought process is a really important to make the jump from, hey, I'm not going to listen to you. I'd rather listen to my warrior. For example, we had a buyer back out of, purchasing one of our houses about a year ago on a different one of my properties here in Houston, but it was crushing. I was going to make a nice little profit on it, and I was worried because it had been sitting on the market for a while and it hadn't sold yet, and we weren't getting a whole lot of showings. And here's our one opportunity to move forward on it. And for one reason or another, the buyer just backed out. And it was a crushing blow a little bit, because I had a lot of hope in that. I was setting a lot of dependency on
closing.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't be talked to for like a bad few days there. And my saboteur was in control. He was telling me all the reasons of why to quit. And he was telling me all the reasons on why I'm not good enough, and why the products that I'm putting out there and that I'm remodeling are not good enough for that people want to buy it. They just don't. As soon as I started feeling those emotions and feelings and thoughts of depression and anxiety and fear, I identified it and I said, no, Sylvester, shut up. That's not true. I can control what I can control. And I'm going to stick with my warrior over here. And we're going to figure out a new marketing plan to draw in more buyers. And we're going to sell this thing to the next homeowner that comes in. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. A week later, another buyer came up, made an offer on the house, and we closed on it 30 days after that. And it's just amazing how you digest events and how you let them affect your mind can have a crazy outcome if you let it. If you let your warrior in control, you're going to rise to every occasion. If you let your saboteur in control, you're just going to keep defeating yourself. You're going to keep preventing yourself from progressing forward in any event that you can possibly see. It could be personal, it could be professionally. A lot of guys experience this when it comes to asking a really hot chick out on a first date. You know, like when I was in high school, I had a lot of self-doubt about asking the hottest chick in high school because I thought she was going to say no. I thought that she's too hot for me. Like she's already got a boyfriend and you know, all that kind of stuff. Right. I feel like some guys can kind of relate with me on that. Or you can let your warrior be in control and you can be fearless and you can go up to that hot chick and you can ask her out on that first date. You can do it with confidence. And when you do it with that, if she's interested, she's probably going to say yes because you have the freaking balls to do it, right? Yeah. Anyway, how do you perceive all of this? What's kind of your take on my whole spiel? And
no, I think that's true. And even that last example you said, I've heard it before that sometimes like the best looking women surprisingly don't get approached that much because people make those assumptions. All these guys have that doubt and they're like, oh, she's probably taken, she's out of my league, she's going to say no. And then that's probably why you see so many people where you're like, how is this super average, kind of ugly dude with some smoking hot chick? And it's probably because he had the self-confidence. I've had the friends where they're consistently dating girls that I think are out of their league. And it's because they have that confidence. They go up to everyone. They're not afraid to hear no. And that's the same thing with sales and marketing and stuff, right? You got to have that mentality where I've heard people, especially in real estate, when they're talking to a seller, when they're trying to get a deal done, in their mind, they're like, this is my house. This is my deal. I'm going to get this deal every single time. Even if they don't, they think that like, hey, I'm going to get this deal done. And that's something you have to train yourself to do. And I'm working on getting better too, right? Because you said earlier you have the doubt when the buyer backed out. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe my products aren't great. People don't want it. And then you have to shift that and say, no, they are great. Maybe not for that buyer, but my products are great. I do great quality work. And same thing with me and my clients. And whenever I'm going out in the world, like I have to think I'm capable, I'm smart. You know, I've gone through the vetting process like so many others have. I've put in the time, and the harder you work, the more you start to believe that you do deserve the outcome that you're working for.
Definitely. So I encourage you to name your saboteur. I encourage you to.
I'm going to do this activity. I wrote it down with Sylvester and Eastwood, but I'm going to do it again with all the descriptions and give them my own names as well and descriptions.
Yeah, exactly. It's very nerdy. It's kind of deep, but.
No, I think even like Kobe Bryant did that with like Black Mamba, right?
Yeah, like if you go that mile, it's just another sign of your element of commitment to it, because change is hard and it doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely.
And since I've kind of had this mind shift, I'd say within the last 7 months or so, it's taken me 7 months to get out of that saboteur mode and back to my warrior mode, because change is hard and you don't realize you're almost in denial when your saboteur is in control of you.
Right.
And
Because
so
it's become your normal. You're used to it.
exactly, exactly. I thought it was gospel. I thought it was just the way the world is. When it's how I was perceiving reality, and it was driving me crazy. It was affecting me in more ways than I even realized. And the more descriptive you are of it, and the more you commit to this little like little T-chart that I'm teaching you here, you'll be able to recognize when he's trying to take the opportunity to control your mind. Sometimes you recognize a few different ways at the beginning, and then you might not realize it until other aspects of your life come back into play that haven't in a while. And then you're like, oh yeah, shit, he was affecting my life here too. So not only has it changed my drive and motivation to grow and expand my business and completely do a 180, it's done the exact same thing with my marriage and my connection with my family and my friends. I all of a sudden have a desire to reach out now, because I feel like I have that empowerment in my warrior inside of me, that I'm not afraid if other people don't like what I have to say. I'm going to say it anyway. And I know, because I have the confidence in me, that I know what I'm doing is right. And people are going to follow along. So that's how I want to live my life. So just start recognizing different patterns of your saboteur, and you just keep suppressing it. You just keep suppressing it with positivity from your warrior that I listen to in my inspirational videos every day. I like listening to your podcast episodes because maybe not everything, but like bits and pieces from different podcasts and that you've told have kind of brought up this idea that, hey, maybe I should talk to Chris about the concept of a saboteur versus a warrior, and use it. I encourage you to go through this technique and name them, and then get back with me on it and let me know what.
I'll let you know what I come up with for sure. And it seems like a good process. I mean, I'm sure within 10, 20 minutes, you can really go through and do a pretty good job of identifying those character traits that you don't want and the ones that you do want, and then putting names to those characters. So definitely a good one for everyone to try out. And I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I've been trying to figure out, and I'm sure there's some good YouTube stuff too on how to go through similar exercises, but a lot of times we just don't even think to even try that. We just think that this is our normal, and we go through the motions every single day. So I'm going to go try that for sure today. And I mean, this was cool because we got to have a call that we would have had anyway, and now we can share this with other people too. So I'll trim it up a little bit, and I'll share it with you. And even if you're okay with it, I can even make this a podcast episode to go live on Monday, because I think this is helpful for anyone listening to do a similar exercise in their life. So we can make it a podcast episode. I really enjoyed this call though, because I'm always looking at activities to strengthen my mind and expand my limits, that I place on myself.
Sky's the limit now, dude.
It is. I'm trying to get to that next level.
And it's all how you perceive it.
Perception is reality.
Just keep listening to your warrior. Keep talking through your podcast, because I hear my warrior through your podcast sometimes, man.
Yeah, you can take pieces of it that you relate to, and that's the really important thing. Like what you said, when you listen to positive motivational stuff, you can take those positive messages and apply it to your life. When someone's like, never quit, someone talks about a story from going homeless to millionaire, whatever. You're like, man, that person had it harder than me. We talked about this. It makes our problem seem a lot smaller. So this was some good stuff, man. As always, thanks again, Scott. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, man.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Cool, man. Talk to you later. Bye.